Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We will begin shortly. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Will Crosswell, and I'm the Chief Retail Officer for Arden Credit Union. We're very excited about our workshop tonight. And while we've had several virtual workshops, sometimes technology is not the easiest to use, so please be patient with us. And we have a lot going on in our lives right now, so know that Arden is here for you. If you have any additional banking or borrowing needs, please keep us in mind. One service we'd like to tell you about is the Arden offers a free concierge service to help members get their best deal, whether it's buying a car, renovating a home, purchasing a first home, or buying an RV. Our experts work one-on-one with our members to offer free guidance and help negotiating your purchase. This is a free service for our members, so please visit ardencu.org to learn more. Now, if you need to ask a question during the workshop, please click the Questions tab and type in your question. The photo to the left is the screen of an iPad, and the photo to the right is the screen of a desktop. We have Lisa on the line from Arden's marketing department who will be communicating the questions to our speaker throughout the workshop and during the Q&A session. We will relay the questions to him as well. Please know that this workshop is being recorded and will be posted on Arden's website within the next few days. And so some excerpts may be used by Braverman Associates, LLC for education or marketing. Let's get to our speaker. To introduce him, Stanley Braverman is Braverman Associates Principal Mediator and Lead Trainer. Braverman, an attorney and also a graduate of the Harvard Program on Negotiation, holds certificates from Cornell University and the University of Notre Dame. Go Irish. For more than a decade, he has served as the Deputy District Director of the 6th State Philadelphia District, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. He was the founding director of the Negotiation and Conflict Resolution Institute at LaSalle University, and Stan has built a national reputation for developing creative solutions for intractable, sensitive, and high-profile employment and workplace disputes. Stan has provided dispute resolution services and negotiation training throughout the country. He has authored 2 award-winning dispute resolution programs currently in use throughout the United States. Stan holds an MBA from Drexel University and a Juris Doctorate from Temple University School of Law. And I tried to come up with a negotiation joke for Stan, but thankfully he talked me out of it and negotiated a better deal for you guys. So Stan, take it away.
Good morning or good evening. Starting to get my camera up. Hi, everybody. Glad to be with you tonight. Let's get right into our topic, negotiating your best deal. All right, we're going to cover these 6 items tonight. You may be familiar with parts of all of them. What I hope to do is to give you insight into areas that you may be able to use better in your future negotiations. So we're going to look at negotiation as essentially problem solving. I'm using negotiation in a wider context. We're using it to include conflict resolution. Conflict is generally resolved through a negotiation. The hidden language of negotiation, what you think you know and what you actually know, two different things. We'll discuss matching negotiation approaches to the situation. Every situation is not appropriate to negotiate in the same way. It's critical to know when to hold and when to fold. When you're just not going to get a better deal, what's the best situation? What's the best that you can do? Better framing of issues leads to the power that you have as a negotiator. Excuse me, I get all choked up when I discuss my my topic. But better negotiation, better framing of issues, and the economics of fair play is tackling that question. Exactly what's fair in a negotiation situation? All of you have had experience in at least some of the types of negotiations that we're are looking at, either on a personal or professional level, whether it's an automobile purchase, getting discounts, vacations, dealing with customer service at either end of the table. So we're gonna look at negotiation tactics and approaches that will cover all of these types of situations. I'm really doing a survey. In the time we have, we won't be going into depth, but I do hope by the end of this presentation, you'll have enough information to do a better negotiation than you had in the past. So let's take a look. We're going to do a quick survey, and I want to judge your self-analysis of where you stand on a negotiation continuum. 1 is you're an inexperienced negotiator, 5 is average, 10 is expert. So if we can just take a minute, we're going to do a poll and see where you are. So if you can help out with the poll, it would be greatly appreciated. We'll just give it a minute. And see where we are. All right, so we have some pretty skilled negotiators. We have some novice negotiators. I can promise that we'll have something here for everybody. It's very, very helpful. I would put myself at about an 8.5. I consider myself a really good expert, really good negotiator. But even I'm still learning. I'm always reading something, getting new information, taking courses, never giving up on the improving my skill. All right, just trying to advance here. Here we go. All right, when we look at skilled negotiators, what we find is some people have 10 years of experience and others have 1 year of experience 10 times. What we mean by that is that if you're negotiating, there's 5 different tactics or approaches you can use for different situations. And we'll address those very shortly. But when you're doing a negotiation, if you're doing it the same way every time, you're really not growing as a negotiator. Like they say, every issue doesn't have to be dealt with with a hammer. So I want to take a look and then see what we can do to improve those skills. All right, let's getting into the meat of the thing now. Negotiation is essentially problem solving. All right, and that again includes conflict resolution. Here's a quick scenario. I have 2 choices here. I think I'm going to go with the orange one. All right, this is a story that's actually about 100 years old, but it's still a good story. I'm a parent of 2 daughters, and they're fighting over the last orange in the house. Nobody remembered who had the orange, the last orange before that. So they came to me, and they're fighting over the orange. And as any good parent, what's the typical solution that most parents would do? Done this a lot of times. I know the answer is most likely going to be cut the orange in half. Let the older one cut the orange. The younger one can pick which of the halves that she wants. So that's what I did. So the younger one ate the pulp and threw the rind into the garbage disposal, and the older one scooped out the pulp, put that in a garbage disposal, and chopped up the rind for her orange cake. Now, if you knew my daughters, you know this isn't a true story. But the point is, had I asked, why do you want the orange, they each could have had the whole. So that's an important concept in negotiation, is understanding what the interests of the parties are. If you truly understand what the other side is looking for, you're much more likely to come up with a solution that works for both parties, and you have a much better chance of coming up with a more improved solution. All right, here's another example, and I'm trying to show creativity in negotiation and trying to have you understand the interests of the other party. This is a true scenario. It's been fact checked. Teddy Roosevelt was doing a whistle stop journey back in 1912, and he had 3 million brochures printed for his whistle stop tour, and he had to use those brochures for his campaign. So it's essential that he use it. The problem is he didn't remember, they didn't do get the copyright. So the photographer who took the picture, it's on the front of the brochure, a guy named Moffat, was a photographer in Chicago, had no political affiliation. He was single-minded, focused on money. And he's very bitter that his artistic recognition, that the artistic recognition of photography wasn't accruing to him. He wasn't really recognized. The cost of using an unauthorized copyright was $1 per reproduction. The typical use fee, which would be $3 million. The typical use fee was 1 to 3 cents, which would be $30,000 to $90,000. So there's a scenario that he had 3 million brochures printed. The cost of using them under typical reproduction rates would have been prohibited. So if you were Roosevelt's campaign manager, what would you do? Think of the interest of the other party, try and come up with a solution. See, I'm giving you a couple minutes to think of the ideas that you'd come up with. Now, many of you would think that, all right, well, maybe we'll offer Moffat a job, or we'll pay $30,000, which was a huge amount of money back then. Maybe offer him some type of exclusive after Roosevelt becomes president, make him a White House photographer. Here's the actual solution that his campaign manager came up with. Problem solved. Roosevelt's campaign manager, George Perkins, dispatched the following cable to Moffat Studios, quote, "We are planning to distribute millions of pamphlets with Roosevelt's picture on the cover. It will be great publicity for the studio whose photograph we use. How much will you pay us to use the photograph?" Respond immediately. Moffat replied, quote, "We've never done this before, but under the circumstances, we'd be pleased to offer $250. Perkins accepted without them dickering more. So there's an example of really understanding what the other, what the other party needs or what the other party wants, and coming up with a solution that works for both parties. A couple of years ago, the National Football League tried to do something similar and have the halftime entertainers pay the NFL to do the entertainment because of the billion people that would be watching the halftime show. And the entertainers didn't bite, they didn't do that. But these types of examples happen all the time. I'm doing this presentation at a discount, and the reason is I'm hoping that you'll see our services and perhaps use them. So you can see that people spend their time, will spend their money in the hopes of something bigger happening. All right. Now we're moving into the hidden language of negotiation. All right, here's our first video. We have a couple for you to look at. Many of us think that we're really good at determining body language. So you can look at this video, and it's a whodunit, and the question is, who killed Lord Smythe? Just a couple of minutes, so I'd like to take a close look and see if you can figure out who done it.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs.
I was planting my petunias in the potting shed. Constable, arrest Lady Smythe. But how did you know? Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away. It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you? Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs.
But I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
It's a bicycle safety commercial for drivers to watch out for bikers. The point of the, so I go back to it. I'm just trying to back up one slide. There we go. All right, so the point of the clip for our purposes is those of you that think you can read body language. It's rare that when I've shown this presentation to hundreds of people that they pick up more than maybe one or two, if any, of the changes. You're so busy concentrating on who killed Lord Smythe that you're not noticing the changes. The same thing with negotiation. You're generally so busy concentrating on getting the results or getting to where you want to be, you're really not observing the body language well. Even if you think you're observing body language, the statistics and chances are you're going to miss cues and clues. So the point of this is, again, to just illustrate that we're not nearly as observant as we think we are when we're concentrating on something like a result. All right. Your attitude can actually influence the negotiation results under some circumstances. People can improve their negotiation skills if they have a positive attitude and they're using a collaborative approach. Collaborative means we're working together. I understand your interests. You understand my interests. We're trying to come up with a solution that works for both of us. So if you have a positive attitude and you're not afraid of the negotiation, then you're collaborative and a collaborative approach, you will get a better result. And much of my, in fact, most of my presentation is based on studies and science, not just my experience. So I really want to be clear that there are studies to back up mostly every slide that I'm using. That's part of our presentation. So attitude makes a big difference when you're working together. The flip side is a competitive negotiator. It really makes no difference because you're out to get everything that you can from the other person. Competitive negotiator, we call that a zero-sum gain. Every dollar I save is a dollar the other person gives up. So you add my gain and their loss, it comes out to zero. So every plus I get is their minus. So competitive negotiators, there's not much of a difference in outcome, no matter what your attitude is. Collaborative negotiators, there is a difference in the outcome. So if you're a very nervous negotiator and you're not comfortable doing that, that will show in your negotiation. And that might be a great time, if it's available, to use one of the concierge services from Ardent. Use a buying service, for example, if you're not comfortable doing that negotiation. All right, here's some more research. Mimicry indicates building a rapport. You can find common ground, but you need to have at least 20 minutes of discussion before you see that. If you're sitting at a table and the other person is doing the same thing, where your arms are crossed and they're doing the same thing. It generally means that they are in agreement with you, but not necessarily. You need to have an understanding of that person. Think of a polygraph exam. You're all familiar from TV with polygraphs. What's the first thing they do? They ask you your name, your favorite color, your street address, your job title. So they'll ask you things that are trying to build a database from which they can then compare for the answers later on. Same thing with body language. If you know the person, you know the person well, it's likely you can read their body language. If you don't know the person well, and I mean really well, chances are you're not going to be able to read their body language. The statistics are you're not much better than 50%. The problem is kind of like at the casinos, you're reinforced when you're right. You think you're right more often than you're actually right. And again, statistically, it's much easier to fake happiness than sadness. Again, body language. Some body language is universal and even biological. They did a study with the Paralympic judo competitors who were sight impaired, and they found that when they won a match, they pumped out their chest and they raised their arms in victory, and that was individuals without the benefit of sight. So that was a natural result. That's something that the competitors have innate. So some body language is universal. The best way to avoid body language detection is to ask questions. Right? So rather than just trust your instinct or body language, ask a lot of questions. Forget the nonverbal signs. That'll get to the bottom, and that'll get you a much better result than relying on body language alone. And I'm going to show you just a few seconds. This is our next poll. Just a few seconds of a dancer spinning, and you'll see a silhouette of a ballerina dancing, and she's spinning to the right or the left. I'm just going to show a few seconds of it, and then I'm going to ask you to take a poll of whether she's spinning to the right or left, whether she's spinning counterclockwise or counterclockwise. All right, so here we go. We're just going to take a few seconds, and then I'd like you to take the poll. Thank you. Oh, or maybe not.
Ha! Here's a dancer. She's clearly spinning in one direction. Or is she?
All right, take your, if we can do the poll. Okay. And then I will show it again. All right, interesting. So the results are really terrific and about what I would expect. So you're all looking at exactly the same thing, but you're seeing different things. So when I show the exact same clip to the same grouping, can we have that poll still up? Okay, when we show the exact same clip to the same individuals, people see the opposite. So a little over half of you saw clockwise, about a little over a quarter of you saw it counterclockwise, and 17% saw both. So the question is, who's right and who's wrong? Right? Because you saw the same thing, so why is it different? Let's go back and look at that one more time. All right, if I can go back. I'm going to show it again, just another few seconds.
Ha! Here's a dancer. She's clearly spinning in one direction. Or is she? It's been said that if you see her going counterclockwise, you use more of your left brain.
Okay, and let's take a look at why you saw the difference. if you were thinking with your left brain, and I don't get too technical, but if you were using your logic and your language, you're writing your logical side of your brain, your left brain, you saw it moving in one direction. If you were looking at it and thinking in the creative side, your right brain, you saw it moving in the other direction. It is certainly possible to use your brain and go back and forth. So many of you, I know, would have seen it going in the other direction when we showed it the second time. So the clip didn't change, it's how you apply your brain to that clip. So if you're thinking in a creative, you're a creative type person, and you're thinking creatively, you'll see it spinning one way. If you're a logic type person and you're thinking of it in logic terms, you're going to see it spinning in the opposite direction. As a negotiator, one of the things you really want to look at is trying to anticipate what the other person is thinking. Is the person you're dealing with, is that a right brain or a left brain person? Is that a person who's logical? Is that a person who's creative? You might want to tailor your discussion, your negotiation to the creative side or the logic side, so it matches the person you're trying to negotiate with. If you're using logic to a creative person, the chances of reaching a good solution are much, much less than coming up with a logical solution to a logic person. So you want to adjust your negotiation tactic, your negotiation style to match the person you're negotiating with. Really important, and that's a great illustration of, and we have another one coming up in a little bit, just a cartoon that illustrates the same thing. So that leads us to matching your negotiation approaches to the situation. I said earlier that there were 5 ways to negotiate. This is dealing with conflict. And the way you deal with conflict is try to negotiate a solution to that conflict. All right, so you're trying to get a negotiation or conflict, you're trying to get the other person or the other parties to do or not do something that you want them to do or not do. All right, so whether it's at work or at home, that doesn't really matter. The process is the same. So these five approaches are pretty much universal. You may have seen them at some point in your school or work, but they're not evenly spread out. All right, so we'll just do these very briefly. We don't have time to go into a tremendous detail on these, but the 2 variables are the importance of the relationship and the importance of the outcome. So if you don't care about the relationship, you don't care about the outcome, avoid is a perfectly valid approach to take. I'm not going to deal with this now. I'll deal with it later. Later it may disappear. Later it might get worse, but it's something that you're just not going to deal with, and you can avoid the issue. It gets a bad rap because avoid kind of has a negative sense to it, but the reality is it's a perfectly legitimate approach to take, and that approach is about 9% of the time. So about 1 out of 10 times, 1 out of 11 times, avoid is actually the best way to go. Accommodate, which is basically saying, now I really don't want to do it your way, but I'll agree to do it your way this time. So I'm giving up my control and saying, all right, I'm just not going to fight over it. We'll agree with what you want. Problem with accommodate is if you accommodate too often, you come across as very weak. And that's not a good thing in a negotiation. It preserves a relationship, but again, it's the type of person that will be taken advantage of more often than some of the other approaches. Compromise is, we'll meet in the middle. We'll do a little bit your way, a little bit my way, and we'll find something in the middle that works for both of us. And that's a medium to low in the relationship, a medium on the importance of the issue or the outcome. Control, which more often is called competitive. The competitive is I win, you lose. That's the zero-sum game we talked about before. So when you buy something, every dollar you spend, is one more dollar for the other side, one less dollar for you. So that's competitive. That's good about 13% of the time. A compromise is about 12% of the time. The biggest part is a collaborate, which works about 47% of the time. And this is over all types of negotiations over a long period of time, not any specific negotiation. But collaborate is, I'm going to share the information and let you know what I want. And you're going to share the information, let me know what you want and why. And based on that, we're going to come up with a solution. One of the cliches that they use for collaborate is, we're going to make a bigger pie before we cut the pie and everybody gets a slice. So collaborate is trying to come up with a grander solution rather than a divisive solution where you get everybody just divides it and there's no increase. So collaborate is by far the best approach. Collaborate also takes the greatest amount of time to do because you really have to figure out the interest and the not just what the other party wants, but what they're willing to do. And you have to share the same on your side, what your interests are and what you're willing to do. So those are the five approaches. All have different advantages, disadvantages. Virtually every negotiator, and we go back to the earlier poll, how often, how experienced you are at negotiating. Most people overuse some of these techniques and underuse other techniques. It should be a well-balanced approach and should match the technique to the type of negotiation that you're doing. So unless you are able to match your style with the type of negotiation, then you're not going to be as successful as you could be as a negotiator. So take a moment, think about which ones you're overusing, which ones you're underusing. A complicated negotiation certainly may have you going from one style to another style throughout a negotiation and ending up with a solution. So that's not uncommon. Right. When do you know that it's time to stop negotiating? That you're going to pick up, you're going to go home, that this just isn't going to work. Let's take a look at when to hold and when to fold. All right, one of the most important concepts that I'm going to cover tonight is something that in literature and negotiation literature, they call BATNA. You may have heard of it. It means best alternative to negotiated agreement. A BATNA is the concept, what's the best thing that you can get if this negotiation is unsuccessful? In other words, there's no way that you're going to understand that your negotiation you got a good deal unless you can compare it to the next best thing to that good deal. So let's take an example. All right, so here's a hypothetical. And again, if we had more time, we could expand on some of these. But let me walk it through based on doing this with other groups. What's your BATNA for purchasing a limited edition 2022 Jeep with upgraded technology package, extended warranty, off-road package, custom paint, leather interior, list price $59,500. Your budget's $51,000 and a trade. The safety features are very important to you. Your trade's an old Jeep with 130,000 miles. It works well and has about a $3,000 trade-in value. So what are the different options that you have available to you? You really want this car. It looks like you're going to be about $5,500 short from the list. You might be able to close that gap somewhat, but if your budget is solid and your trade-in is solid, and they don't come down the $5,500, what other choices do you have? And here's where it's important for each of you to take a look at this and see that it's going to be different for each of you. So some of you may have one BATNA, others may have another. So let's look at some potential BATNAs. So we'll put this into effect. All right, so here's just some of the choices that you can go with. You could say, all right, I'm not going to pay that much for a car. I'll get a car with fewer options. You might choose to lease. You might do nothing and just keep your old car. You might wait for a new model. You might buy later, change dealers. You might use the Arden Credit Union concierge service, the buying service, see if they can do better for you. You might go buy a car off the internet. I sold the car one time on eBay. So yeah, you never know which approach is the best one for you, unless you think through all your choices. All right, so if I can't get the car at the price that I want, from this list, one of these will be your best option. So now you can compare. Should I increase the budget, or should I walk away and take my choice to finance privately, or to buy a demo with a couple thousand miles on it? So these are all choices. It's up to you to decide which is the best choice for you. Framing is critical to your negotiation skill and success. How you frame an issue will often result in the solution that you come up with. So let's take a look at some framing issues. All right, besides BATNA, the old axiom that information is power really doesn't apply anymore. And perception equals reality no longer really applies. You need information is power, and your BATNA, rather, information is power and BATNA is your power. This cartoon kind of, to me, illustrates your Democrats and your Republicans, whichever side you happen to be on. They see what they see, but there's no discussion other than this is a 6 or this is a 9. The issue could be, it's a number divisible by 3, or it's a number under 10, or it's a number. There's a lot of ways that this could be described other than a 6 or a 9. So trying to understand how the other person is seeing it, adding information to that is where you need to go. All right, so you need information, your perception, you need to understand where they are, and your BATNA. If you can't agree, how do we frame this and where do we go from here? So again, maybe the framing is a number divisible by 3 under 10. A picture is worth not much. Take a look at this picture, and my guess is almost all of you would think this is a picture from a hotel room. In reality, this is actually a picture of a jail cell, a prison cell in Sweden. They have something called luxury prisons. So sometimes, even though you're seeing it, you believe it, it looks good to you, it's not at all what you think it is. So how you frame this picture would be give you different results. All right, besides framing, you want to take with the other side who has framed an issue, you want to reframe it so it's in your best light. All right, this is a glass of wine, a wine glass, a stemware's bowl stem, foot. You might say describe the illustration, describe the photo. I'm not sure if it's an illustration or a photo, but reframing it, putting that in context of what the other parties are looking for and what's in your best interest. How you frame the question will often result in how you get the answer. Time has great value. The value of having somebody come in to repair your roof when your roof is leaking, it's different from having somebody come out to check your roof, which might be 20 years old and need to be replaced. So the value of time, concert ticket the day after the concert is valueless. The day before the concert, it might be worth $200. So time is something you can always use and create or detract value just based on time. All right, we're moving along pretty good. Here's an example of moving into the fairness concept. Fairness, many believe that fairness is a biological component of all humans, that we actually have a sense of fairness that's in our DNA. So let's take a look at this video. It's a primatologist describing a monkey experiment, and I think you will appreciate it. Oh.
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. So this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs and with birds and with chimpanzees. With Sarah Brosnan, we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put two capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group. They know each other. We take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now, if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, it's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber, and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber.
All right, so we're have the monkey on the left is getting a cucumber. The monkey on the right
needs to give it to us.
Getting a grape, and the monkey on the left with the cucumber doesn't think that that's fair, because they're both doing the same thing, giving a rock for a treat. All right, it's a TED Talk, so the voice is a little bit scratchy, but it shows you that even the capuchin monkeys have a sense of fairness, that it's simply not fair for one monkey to do the same thing and get a grape, the other monkey to do the same thing and get a cucumber, although before the grape was issued, the cucumbers were fine for both of them. So that experiment's been repeated with monkeys, dogs, birds, and some other animals, that there's a sense of fairness that's part of just part of the biology. So let's talk about fairness. It's not, there we go. So let's talk about the economics of fair play, and then we'll leave time for questions. All right, I'm hitting the, there we go. All right, here's our last poll. And we're gonna look at see what your sense of fairness is. And we hope you'll take the poll with us. All right, so we're going to do a $1 million question, and here's how it goes. First, we want to decide what is fair, what standards apply, why is it fair, and we're going to talk about creative fairness, because I'm going to try and change your sense of fairness by doing the next experiment in just a moment. There we go. All right, so this is called the ultimatum game. It's actually based on a study that was conducted on 6 continents over 20 years, all types of cultures, large and small, wealthy, less wealthy, male, female, and different ages. So it really cut across the board. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a banker, and the banker is going to offer $1 million to be shared between 2 people. One person will be anonymous and will get to share with the other person. So one person is going to give $1 million to share with you, all right, each of you individually. It's a take it or leave it offer. If you accept the offer that this individual gives to you, you keep the money and they keep the balance. So if they offer you $20,000, or then you could say, okay, I accept the $20,000, and you keep $20,000 and they get $1 million less $20,000. You never meet the other person, and that person has complete discretion on how much to share with you of the $1 million. And $1 million is provided by a banker. It's a game show. And here's the hypothetical. And if you don't accept it, both of you get 0. So if you accept it, the other person gets the money. If you reject it, the other person gets nothing as well. So let's presume that the person's given $1 million to share with you, and you are offered $10 to accept or reject. So now we're going to do the poll and see if you would accept the offer of $10, knowing the other person has $1 million less $10 if you accept it. If you reject it, you each get nothing. So can we do this next poll? All right, so you get to choose, would you accept the $10 or reject the $10? All right, well, it looks like the answer is 9% would accept it and 91% would reject. All right, and I'm going to, again, I don't have the chance to speak with each of you, but having done this many times, I'm going to guess that you think it's just not fair. Why should that other person get away with, almost $1 million and you only get $10? So the question is, if we're going to reframe it or change it, your choice really is to accept $10 or nothing. You chose to accept nothing, most of you, all right, to accept nothing, knowing the other person will get nothing. So in effect, you spent $10 to punish the other person. You used money that you could have had to punish or penalize the other person because you didn't think they were fair, and you don't think it's right to get that offer. All right, we're going to do the poll again. I'm going to change the facts just a little bit. All right, so here's the second scenario. Suppose that same circumstances, $1 million a share with you from another person. And suppose you learned that it was computer generated randomly, that it's just as likely it could have been reversed. And there was no personal decision made. It was purely generated by a computer. Or suppose that there's 30 of you, and if you don't accept it, it goes to the next person, the next person, the next person. So I'm changing the scenario around, that each time if you reject it, it just goes to somebody else until somebody accepts it. So let's do the poll again and see under the second scenario, would you accept the offer knowing that there was no personal decision involved, or it would just be offered to somebody else? So let's see what your results would be then. Look at the difference. All right, so 40, whatever it is, 40% of you changed your vote. actually almost 50% changed your vote. So still some of you think it's not fair, and that does work. But changing the scenario, think of a negotiation where you can explain, you can use information, you can use insight to explain why this is fair. I didn't make this decision. It's a rule that's been used, for the last 20 years. It's a policy. It's a law. It's how I run my business, how I run my household. This is how I do things. I'm glad to listen. There's different ways of explaining why it's not a personal decision, and that may help you overcome the sense of fairness. But in that simple example, I was able to change a large portion of those attending to change their sense of fairness and accept an offer that they wouldn't accept under other circumstances. And this matches how it's typically comes out in the presentations that I've done in the past. Thank you for your help and cooperation. Trying to advance. Lisa, can you help me go to the next slide, please? Over there.
Hey, Stan, which slide are you trying to get to?
I'm trying to go to the next slide.
Is this the correct one, the negotiating price?
Yeah, it's that was fair. So we're into the negotiating price. I think it's your slide 40.
Oh, just give me 1 second.
Okay, well, let me just go ahead with, because we're almost out of time. There we go. And I want to leave, a couple of minutes for questions and wrap up. We there? There we go. There's this play, Arthur Miller's The Price. I'll just give one example that it sort of ties the presentation together. There's a old man who passed away. He was a furniture dealer, and his two sons were fighting over the items that were left in the building. The building was going to be demolished the next couple of days. So another furniture dealer came up looking at the items, and there was this beautiful hand-carved antique desk, very large desk. And the one son is saying, as he's trying to sell it, look at this magnificent desk. He's describing, all the attributes and the intricate carvings. And the furniture dealer said, well, that's all true, but this is New York City. That all the houses built before World War II had a 42-inch door, and the ones built after World War II had a 36-inch door. It would never fit through any door for any apartment or unit built after World War II. Again, trying to change the sense of fairness, trying to use information. And BATNA, what do you do if you can't sell it? You're stuck with that. You're stuck with that desk at that location, which is going to be demolished in the next couple of days. So explaining the detriments of something is just as important as explaining the positives and trying to come up with a best negotiation. You've been a terrific group. I want to thank you for your attention. And if Browerman Associates can be of any service, please keep us in mind, and we're glad to take any questions you have.
Stan, we do have a couple questions that came in. One of them is, what is the greatest asset to have when you're going into a negotiation?
By far, the greatest asset you can have. The most important thing you can do before negotiation is to prepare. You know, real estate, it's location, location, location. Negotiation is prepare, prepare, prepare. Understand the other side's interest and do your BATNA, your best alternative to negotiated agreement. That gives you strength. So you know exactly ahead of time when you're going to walk away. If you know that, that gives you a lot of negotiation power. Good question.
All right. And our next question is, what's always a deal breaker?
Okay, I'm going to give a similar answer. The deal breaker is when your BATNA is better than the deal. You know, buying a demo Jeep is a better deal than buying the new Jeep. Right? So the deal breaker is you will go so far and no further, and you know that in advance. And you may change your BATNA as you negotiate and get more information, but that BATNA is what gives you the power to know when to walk away, when it's a poor, you know, a poor deal for you. And similar, good question.
And we have time for one more question, Stan. Other than attending this workshop tonight, how does someone learn to negotiate and really become an expert?
Okay, read everything you can. I read psychology. There's a lot of good podcasts. The Hidden Brain on NPR is a great example. Tells you how people think. We offer negotiation training through our website. We have a program running May 11th. Anyone who is interested in taking that 2-hour course, there is some overlap with this one, but contact us and we'll give you a 50% discount. So taking a course from us or online, there's a lot of courses that are available. But read and pay attention to how other people negotiate. I was a federal mediator and I got to see how both parties mediate. So I really was observing the negotiation process for a very long time and got to see a lot of people negotiating. It's a good way.
And that was our last question for tonight, Stan.
Thank you so much. And I'll turn my camera off now, I think.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Stan, for providing some great information on negotiating. And we would like to thank everyone for attending. There will be a short survey sent out, and we would love to hear feedback to help us improve for our future workshops. Thank you all, and have a great night.
Thanks, Will.